items that anyone wants to discuss, unless Mandar and Kwat, who just joined, have something they want to bring up?
Yeah, so I want to bring up something from the extensions API,
Right.
and specifically regarding Envoy filter. So let's discuss that when.
Might as well do it now. Do you want to just dive right in?
Yeah. So if you pull up the doc, there is.
Let's see if I have it. Is it in here somewhere? Okay. I'll find it. Yeah. I'll find it.
So one of the options that that now I'm again seriously considering, and Sriram, who is not on this call, is strongly supporting it, is that we just fix the parts of the Envoy filter API that need to be fixed. So for example, there are three main things. One is relying on names. So if you scroll down, and there's like one section that goes through what are the issues with Envoy filter API.
Tell me when I.
Yep. Scroll down further. Okay. So examination that has some details, but you can scroll down. That has the details, which I think we will have already read. But now if you go down a little bit further, yes. Okay. So that's okay. So essentially augmenting the Envoy filter API. So the issues today with Envoy filter, which does a whole bunch of things, XDS patching and stuff, are difficulty in upgrades because it relies on unstable names. There is a lot of boilerplate config and code, and it seems normally like a very low-level API. And then there is some difficulty in canarying changes, right? So these are the top three issues that we have with Envoy filter API. And the other proposals were trying to address this and then also do some other things. The reason to focus back on Envoy filter API again is that I think we already discussed having a higher level API on top of whatever the extension API is, right? So for example, a specific API for WebAssembly extensions that abstracts away some of the other repetition and all that. So if ultimately the API that we want to present to the user is going to be one level higher, right? So on one side, there is a specific telemetry API proposal, and then we have also discussed or have the desire to have a WASM specific proposal. Then creating yet another API in the middle is, so that's the part that at least I'm reconsidering now, because if we can get Envoy filter API to a shape where it's upgrade safe, like does these three things in my mind, right? We can canary things, remove some of the boilerplate, and doesn't rely on names unless it's like absolutely necessary or there is no other way. Then we don't introduce a new API forward or backward reference, but just fix in place and only concentrate on the higher level APIs in terms of new API introduction. And what it essentially does is, if you look at the other proposal that Kwat had, right? So this essentially adds aspects of that to Envoy filter. So basically, all the filters will now have associated functions, right? So telemetry, pre-processing, auth, and post-processing. So these are enums, right? So now, because they're enums, they're like part of the API, well-defined. And we don't need those to be that small either. So these are the fours that were proposed um, in the other API. But actually, we can have them slightly more granular than that. So specifically, what I'm proposing is that we also have functions that are for built-in filters that are injected by the control plane directly, right? So ODZ filters are a clear example of that are just inserted by control plane. Now, if we add that as an enum, then that's part of the API. And now you can clearly say that insert my filter, right? So we will specify the order of our enums. And now you can specify where you want your filter to be in what function. Within a function, the order is unspecified because they are considered independent filters. So the idea is that now you can rely on enums, and you need to go back to specific patching behavior only in very, very specialized cases. And as long as you rely on enums, you should be upgradable, because a filter doesn't change its function from one version to another. If it was a pre-auth before, it will remain so later. The boilerplate code are actually like much simpler changes, especially for HTTP filters. If you look at HTTP filters, it has this, we say apply to HTTP filters, but then we still ask people to write HTTP connection manager, and sometimes even ask them to write like onboard.router, right? So this can actually just be solved by adding some more smart defaulting behavior. So if you're applying to HTTP filter, you don't need to specify HTTP connection manager. Like there is no need to go to that level. And then canarying changes, which is semi-supported today, but not quite, right? To canary changes, you need several levels of replace semantics, right? Which are missing from Envoy filter today. So you can have replace semantics of 3 different levels. One is you just want to replace all filters in a particular function, right? In which case you don't care what the root namespace said. You just want to replace one function. If you have the requirement to completely specify your own filter chain, you should be able to do that. And then you just say, I don't care what else applies to me. If I have specified, so if I've specified the most specific match, which is like, let's say my canonical service match or my workload match, then just replace, essentially you're fully specifying the filter chain here. Like doesn't matter what other things are. And then there is the replace by name, but this time the name is specified in the root namespace itself, right? So a very common example of something like this is that we have our stats API, and we have attribute gen filter, which is going to be generated using OpenAPI spec. Each and every service is expected to provide its own configuration for their own OpenAPI spec. So in that case, what we would do is we would have, in the root namespace, we will have an attribute gen filter defined with whatever name the administrator chooses now, right? They can call it OpenAPI or whatever hell they want to call it. And then every workload scoped Envoy filter can just provide an implementation of that attribute gen filter. So there is a clear composition here where default is provided at the top, or placeholder is provided at the top, and an implementation is provided by a particular workload. So if you look at the requirements that we had specified before, this is able to model canarying behavior of canarying new versions of filters, new versions of extensions, while maintaining, while still making it possible within the API and not just entirely pushing it down to CI/CD. So I think what I'm looking for here is some serious discussion about where so essentially the first important point is that, do we want to continue with the new kind of API, or do we want to fix Envoy Filter API where it is and then just concentrate on the much higher level APIs? So that's the first opinion point that I'm really looking for.
So Mandar, from my point of view, if you can fix an existing API to make it more extensible and usable, we should do that. That's just makes common sense. I thought Envoy filter was unfixable, but looks like you and some other folks have done some research to make it so that that's not the case. I think that's a great idea. Why make another API when you can make this more usable?
Right. So I think I haven't added enough cons here. The API surface of Envoy Filter API itself grows, right? Because pretty much everything listed here is a new facet to the API. But yes, as a whole API, we haven't added like a whole new top level API. So yeah, I'm okay, that's good to know. I will actually like have a draft API PR where we can discuss the details of this. But anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of opinions, but probably others should say something instead of me. My main concern is the unfixable parts of Envoy filter. How we're gonna address forward compatibility.
That's what I thought. Again, I'm very happy to be proven wrong here, Mandar. So if you think you can come up with a good workflow, right, Quad? We should try.
Yeah, I mean, I tried. I couldn't, but if somebody can do it, that would be great.
So Quad, okay, what we could do is which specific part in the requirements do you think is unfixable with what we have?
So the reliance on names, which I think really means symbols, is kind of the core part of Envoy filter, because you depend on the XDS fields to apply changes, and those changes are not stable across versions of Istio. For example, when we move from one representation to another representation, like it happened to filter chains in listeners, virtual service survived that transition because it did not reference those things. But Envoy filter just by necessity has to reference one of those things.
So, okay, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but using functions and using other primary attributes, right? So, port and other things which are kind of more fundamental to decide the placement of a filter, and then using filter functions.
So filter functions actually try to classify existing native extensions in Envoy, and they simply don't fall into that categorization because they just do everything at once, many of them. If you take any single filter, they tends to do auth and telemetry, for example, together, and it's very difficult to insert functions in between those two steps.
So some things. Well, I mean, I guess that is a problem not with this API then, right? It's
a problem in Envoy. I agree.
Correct, right?
How
So
we have to map existing stuff into this API, and there's a gap. So I don't know how to address that.
And Manda, there's another interesting point here, which is even if you add these functions-based placements, you will have some pieces of this API which can be promoted to beta, and then some pieces of the Envoy filter API can never be promoted to beta. So as a whole, this API will never get to a production usage quality because of the reason what Quat is mentioning. If you still allow arbitrary patching of XDS fields, by definition, you cannot make them upgrade stable, right? There's no way to do that because the same resource will just not work.
Right, but all the new parts of the API that we're proposing here, right? We're not we're explicitly not letting you patch anything. We're just so you can just replace things.
I agree.
We're actually saying that there won't be any merge. So I guess the mapping of what God just mentioned of mapping of existing extensions or existing filters into one of these functions, and what's the mode of failure? I think that's the other thing as well.
What's the recommendation going to be though, right? Are we going to recommend that people touch Envoy filter at all, or is it always going to be, hey, use the higher level APIs, which we can, and we'll have some controller that's generating the right Envoy filter for the right version of everything?
Yes. So okay, that's a great point. Yes, I mean in my mind, and which is what pushed me towards this, is that the higher level telemetry API and the WASM based API, which abstracts some of the WASM areas out, is what we would expect. We would push people towards using directly. So there is going to be a translator and some code, some Istio code that takes that and expresses it as Envoy filter API. And as it stands today, you can't really do it cleanly with Envoy filter API that satisfies the requirements that we laid out.
Are we going to consider the high-level API stable API? Because this seems like it's going to be implementation detail, and it seems not really necessary to do translation to Envoy filter. If the high-level API is what users use actually.
So there is a difference between like runtime support, right? What API does the runtime support, and what API does tooling support, right? So if runtime supports Envoy filter API, then we can build as much tooling as we want around other APIs that finally compiles it down to Envoy filter API.
Once an Envoy filter is created, we might be changing or deprecating some of these fields. I would love some insight into how I might write an analyzer to tell people if they're using like names like HTTP filter they're changing, or how I can tell people if they have an old Envoy filter what the new replacement is.
That's a great point, and I think those things are most definitely possible. right? We haven't done it yet, but those things are absolutely possible. So essentially also calling out like a envoy filter linter, right, which calls out the safe usage and unsafe usage of envoy filter.
That's what the analyzer is supposed to be. And
Right.
I think in 1.5, there were some fields that we told people not to use. That code was sort of removed. So now there's no guidance at all if your envoy filter is weird. So any advice you have on how people should not be writing envoy filters can be made into a warning or info or error message in the analyzer.
Right. Okay.
I think so. Ed, that's an existing issue already. So yeah, if we change envoy filter, we should make sure we fix the usability and the analyzer piece collectively. But Mandar, if the stable interface is a higher level API, then why not just augment the control plane to create the XDS you want? What's the value we are adding by changing envoy filter at this point then?
So the issue is, well, I mean, envoy filter needs fixing, but if we actually try to satisfy all the requirements laid out here by any other API, then it needs to do a lot of things that envoy filter needs to do, right? So being able to scope things, the replace behavior. So rather than having it done in multiple different ways in multiple APIs, we already have an API, so we augment its behavior and fix it, and then anything else on top can use it. So that's the thinking behind it.
I see. But this middle API, the envoy filter, which you're going to augment to add new fields, I'm still saying that will never get out of alpha as long as you are okay with it. Unless we deprecate the current semantics. Right.
Okay, that's that. Okay, so the only way to move this past alpha is if we deprecate the full patch semantics or introduce an XDS patch API.
That's my understanding, and obviously you and Kuat might be more experts in this. So you please feel free to correct me.
I mean, yeah. So I think alpha beta promotion is tricky because I mean, it's always possible to call parts of API unsafe, right? And the parts that are not unsafe can proceed to whatever level of stability that we want them to.
So we need something that is better for distributing and managing extensions, right? We need that in a nearer term than another release cycle of design. So to me, it seems like fixing envoy filter API is worthy goal in and of itself. And then maybe we reassess at the end of that process where we stand and whether or not we need another layer or another extension. Is that the thinking you're having, Niraj, as well?
I totally agree. I'm just making sure Mandar realizes that if he comes on 1.8 and says, hey, let's promote this, he's going to get a lot of pushback from other TOC members. That's the only thing I'm trying to say here. But yeah, as an incremental step, this totally makes sense.
So Neeraj, I think to that we can start. So yeah, so the API promotion thing is a very, very good thing that you raised it now, so that we can have discussion about it early. than later. So the related thing then here is that in order to complete a usable extension story, right? So right now extensions have to be fetched over a URL, right? WASM extensions have to be fetched over a URL, and it has a few modes of failure, but it is still possible. Quath is working on the filter config discovery service, and once that gets into like proper use, right? I think that's when the whole story will be usable, even from a low-level API standpoint. So convergence of this and that is the next or actually a concurrent step. So the next step here then is, I've already taken half an hour. Next step here is I will have an API PR, and of course, I'll work with Quad on the specific things and of inability to classify and whatnot, and then see what the PR looks like.
Okay. Is there anything else we should talk about before we move on?
Just one thing for this, Mandar, I would say, I don't know how much you want to put it in 1.7 versus like a follow on in 1.8, as in trying to get new fields and canary. I mean, we have only like, what, 2 weeks left. So that might be too much to bite. Even if you get the new fields in the API without canary, I don't think it's a feature loss. So it might be acceptable.
Okay. Oh, I mean, okay. So yeah, so just an API PR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to get this incrementally. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing I put on the agenda is I think we need to go over where we stand on our 1.7 items, because I was trying to populate the status for the working group leads meeting yesterday, and I'm concerned that we haven't made enough progress anywhere. So maybe I'm just not thinking correctly. So I wanted to go through it. So I've linked the ones that sort of the high level things from our roadmap, and let me share the tab. So like for enable extensions ecosystem, there's these are all the open items. Do we feel that we've provided a good extension distribution mechanism design and implementation at this point? Where do we feel we stand on this particular set of issues?
Yeah, so we don't have extension distribution mechanism implemented for well, I mean, I guess Quad's Envoy side PR will probably land in time, but the control plane changes required to make it happen will not. In terms of so we did make progress on the HTTP part though, right? We did make progress on HTTP and the caching and the generation of metrics there. So we definitely did make some progress on extension distribution, but it's definitely not complete, like halfway done.
Okay. Do we have documentation for any of the work that's been done available?
No, we don't. So I guess that's like that will be part of 1.7 release. So essentially documenting what's possible with the code that we have already added.
Okay.
And that doesn't have to be done by the code freeze though, right? That the documentation, I mean, that part can follow next week or whatever.
Yeah, as long as we are, I mean, part of this exercise, I just want to make sure we're tracking what needs to be done in the next 2 weeks, because 2 weeks goes by pretty quickly these days. So, okay. The next thing was design the long-term telemetry APIs. So I think we just spent a while talking about the extensions API. These latter two, I mean, we have the proposal, the RFC sort of in a funny state, and I know that's on me to push more on that. And I know there's some people here who have added some good comments recently. So is there anything else that we think we should do other than keep pushing on that, or, you know, a renewed push on the telemetry API? I don't think so, but.
What's the goal, Doug, for 1.7? I mean, like you said, time seems to be passing relatively quickly, and we are already almost at the code freeze side.
So I think the goal for 1.7 for this was to have a plan, like to have the finalized design, right? So we could start the 1.8 cycle with implementation, or the last vestiges of approvals and implementation. And so some of that can, like, it's unaffected by code freeze, but it's still work that has to be done. And I know we were supposed to have side design meetings and things, and those slipped, and we didn't have them. So I just want to make sure that this doesn't end up slipping 2 more releases, right? This doesn't, you know, drag on until 1.11 or something, right? So
I think it would help to have a list of blockers that allow us, that we need to start first in terms of runtime and envoy. Or things like, you know, whether you can change things at runtime versus at startup versus at installation time. For example, tracing driver being applied dynamically rather than hard-coded. So that would help with planning the work in terms of implementation.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, I was muted. The next big item was improve operational excellence, and I have started adding some of these tests for both of the P0s. Has anyone looked at CNI or negative tests?
No, I have not. Like, I was tasked with the telemetry V2 E2E. I have not done that yet. I don't think it will be done for 1.7, given that I'm focusing on other areas right now.
Okay. Do we have concerns about CNI functionality with V2, or do we think we're okay and that testing can wait?
I know that I think Jay Shaughnessy was reporting some issues that I know other people are looking into, kind of around. I know they do. I think it's related to OpenShift, but I'm not quite sure. I don't know if he's on the call.
Jay's on the call.
Yeah, I'm on the call. So right now, I'm not aware of anything that's affecting telemetry specifically due to CNI. So I think that was cleaned up, I think. So, but yeah, so CNI is enabled by default on with OpenShift, which is where I do pretty much all my stuff. But right now, I don't think that there's an issue that's CNI related. So the tests, I mean, always would be good, but I don't think it's addressing a particular issue right now.
Okay, so it sounds like, you know, we've got at least some manual testing that's been ongoing that's doing validation there. Okay. All right, let's see. The next thing was V2 transition and enable full V2 transition. We have request classification. Did we do anything regarding non-mesh destinations and lookups? Has any work proceeded there? I'm not aware of any.
Is this the one that I think I was supposed to work on, right? Yeah,
Yes.
Yep.
we are internally right now struggling to get telemetry V2 working for 1.6. So my hope was if that was done, then I can offload some resources.
Wait, what am I hearing? You're having trouble. Okay, maybe you should comment about that at the end of the call.
Yeah.
Because
No, this is nothing to do with open source Istio. It's just how
Okay.
our dashboard integrates. We need to make sure
Okay.
all the pieces are available.
Okay.
So I would just say it won't be done for 1.7. The best I can do is I'll start an RFC and I'll get comments from you and other folks in the group. But I mean, our dashboard is right now not working with V2. So for me to spend time to get non-mesh pieces is a little difficult.
Okay. I think similarly, there's work underway to write the shim for the OOP or write a shim for auth and actually even telemetry adapters using x.z and access logs. But I don't know that that's going to be done. Peter?
Yeah, I doubt it can be done by 1.7, but I mean, yeah. But is it a hard requirement for this to ship in 1.7 in order to remove it in 1.8?
Well, yeah. I mean, what I'm thinking is now looking over this and the work that hasn't been done. Like I don't know that we've met the bar to delete Mixer in 1.8, which is what I wanted to raise here because I'm fairly concerned about that.
Well, the tooling, the tooling doesn't need to be deadline by the Istio release, right? We can just release it out of sync.
No, this is not tooling. This is a Mixer server change. So we decided not to do it without tool, but instead just add the support for externality and the access log API support into the Mixer server. Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we also haven't. I think we haven't made any progress on metrics expiry yet or bucket customization.
Yeah. So yeah, I start to prototype support for those two, like solution for those two issues, but it's just inherently hard with like the WebAssembly API, the nature of WebAssembly API, and like Envoy stats system, the complication there. So yeah, but I mean, I'm starting to make progress, but I don't think it will make 1.7 as well.
So I guess the question that then Doug is raising is that does that mean we cannot remove Mixer right now? So I would yeah, go ahead, Neeraj.
So the bucket customization, in my opinion, I don't think there were many usage of it. That is one of the things that we are changing on our side to be compatible. That's why our dashboard is failing. I don't know if anyone else relies on it. Maybe we can live with that whatever you get is default, and maybe in 1.8 we'll add back customization. But if it's too hard, like Peter is saying, I don't know how much complexity you want to add because of that functionality. That's just for this particular piece, the bucket customization. There are other aspects of it, right?
Well, so yeah, I guess my question, which I was rephrasing perfectly, was like, given all of these little pieces don't seem to be done, have we done enough in cumulative to say, hey, we feel comfortable totally disabling your escape hatch in 1.8? I'm not sure that we do. Does anyone think that we are? I mean, it feels like we're just racing forward, but we're not actually doing the things we said we'd do, and that's what I'm pretty concerned about.
So I think what would I completely agree with you, Doug. But in order to make a decision, right, or to kind of stop the decision that we have made previously, we really need to know from the community if anyone is going to be affected, and then to what extent. Right. So the thing that we have to weigh is, what are we not achieving by kind of keeping Mixer there for another release, right? In terms of in terms of build and tests that run and whatnot, and then on the other side, if we do remove it, we do remove it with these caveats, then what's the cost that some of our users will have to pay? Actually, we don't have a good handle on how many people still use Mixer.
Right. I mean, the only thing we know is there have been requests to find out when it's fully going away, but but I don't know if that's a good proxy or not for number of people actually using it.
So the other point is that there are definitely people that are using Mixer, like either out-of-box adapter or like other functionality, and the problem for them is how to make the transition into the new model. And we don't have the extension API yet, and I mean, so we don't have a very good story for people who are looking for transition. I mean, not only the P0s listed there, but people will need some guide on how they migrate to the Wasm world, either the API or more document about the Wasm programming, which we currently don't have. So, I mean, that might like be another reason, like we should consider a delay for this.
At least like my thoughts on this. Right now, if you're trying to transition over, you don't know what the kind of the missing gaps are. You have to look through GitHub issues, or various pages on Istio.io to kind of like figure like what are the things that I could do that I can't do. I think one thing that we need is at least documentation. Like, here's Mixer v2. Here's the benefits. Here are the missing gaps. Kind of coalesced into one single page, and then at least kind of have it more as a user guide of like here's how you can transition, because right now the documentation is very not user focused. I guess it's very implementation focused, and so I think it's difficult for people to make that, like, how do I make that leap, and kind of trust that this is going to work the way that I have, and kind of know the associated trade-offs.
That's a good point, Jacob. I mean, that will help. And I mean, you and I, and with Mandar and Doug's help, we can write that doc, and other people here. But that still, will not help us decide what Doug is asking, right? I mean, that decision has to be made based on the current reality. I mean, whether we remove Mixer in 1.7 or not. Right?
Oh yeah, no, I agree as well.
I mean, I'm agreeing with you, Doug. I mean, looks like we didn't do enough work.
Okay. So that might be something I need to raise at the TOC. Okay, just real quick, I guess keep moving. Was any progress made on making Istio more debuggable? I know we had some people that were looking at doing some of the P2 work, but I don't think we've done configuration, telemetry, restoration. I don't know if the TCP metadata exchange stats were exposed. Or Peter, I know you had looked at exposing Envoy generated stats, all of the Envoy stats. Is there anything of note to report on these?
Yeah, for at least for the exposing Envoy generated stats, I'm conducting some experiment on it. I mean, but I haven't got the final result yet. But like the preliminary result doesn't seems like not very good. I mean, I don't see much improvement, especially for finding fan out proxy. But yeah, I need to do more testing on it.
Which one is this, Peter? Sorry.
So the consider exposing all Envoy generated stats by default.
Oh, yeah. And it especially at ingress.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Like, very bad. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe like there's other consideration is that maybe we should not enable it on gateway, but enable it for other proxies, which doesn't have as much as cluster as ingress. But yeah, the measurement hasn't been done, so that's the current progress there.
Okay. Okay. The final thing, I think we were talking about adding a tool, and Ed, I know you've looked at this. Do we feel like we're in a good place here, or do we need a lot more work on detecting and warning about mixer usage, just related to the earlier conversation? I'm not sure this time.
I am happy to help anybody with detecting mixer resources. I don't know which ones are removed or what I should be doing to check them.
Yeah. Okay.
The analyzer can only look at things that Gala used to know about. So anything that Gala used to know about, if it's been taken out, I would love to warn about it.
Well, so we haven't taken anything out, but I think we want to flag when people are using them. So maybe we can sync offline. I can provide a list of the mixer CR, the mixer resources, and we can figure out how to improve that.
Great.
Okay, well, sorry for dragging through all of that, but I was just growing concerned about where we stood, so I wanted to make sure I was in sync with the work. I don't have anything else, and I know we're coming up against the timeline. Is there something else that anyone wants to raise?
I didn't know if anyone was interested in almost maybe something good, like why we actually go through all this. I could show a request classification 2-minute demo.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Yes, please do.
Because it's otherwise kind of depressing.
The previous section was a downer. Yes.
Yes. If I can share, let me try. Let me know if you can see this Chiali graph.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so this is a little demo that we have. It simulates some travel application. So you can kind of see that you've got these travel portals and it makes requests for travel reservations. And it goes through and it gets hotels and flights and cars and things like that. And so if you're unfamiliar with Chiali, the triangles are like services and the squares are app or application versions. So this is like, hotels version 1. So you get a request from travels version 1 workload, goes to the asking for the hotel service, and it gets routed to the V1 of the hotel's workload, and so forth. So request classification is experimental in 1.6, but we wanted to jump on that because it's a pretty neat feature. And so now there's this option that if you were to go ahead and actually have configured it in Istio by adding the request operation attribute to the metrics, you are now able to turn on operation nodes in Kiali, or you will be in our next release. And you can see things like this. So let's say you're making a car reservation. As a request header, you know whether or not it's actually VIP request handling or standard request handling. And so you've got these two different buckets, basically classifiers, right? So that's using that new attribute that was injected for request operations, and then bucketizing the requests into those two things, for example. And then, you can do the usual things like get the traffic that's going specifically through that operation. You can get response times specifically for that operation, and so forth. You can notice that there's a VIP and standard classification for both the car service and the hotel service. So you can actually use the same classifiers for multiple services. And if I was to turn off service nodes, then you're going to get the total aggregations for VIP requests going to either cars or hotels or so forth, things like that. And a couple more of these classifiers. This one's more about what service you're actually asking for, like are you asking for a travel quote or a listing of cities handled by this workload. So, I think the request classification stuff adds quite a lot of ability for people to examine what's going on in their mesh and, perhaps figure out where there's bottlenecks, figure out if you need to break up a service into multiple services and so forth. So just wanted to show you guys that.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
thank you.
That is awesome. Can you show us the attribute gen config?
Yes.
Or any of these, or
so.
one of these.
Let me see. So we have a little script that deploys this. Let me just see if I have it. Let me see if I can open it quickly, if I can find it. So, yeah, in this is can you guys see this script? You can, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so down here, you can see here's when I run this installer for the whole demo, if I choose to install the request operation stuff, here's the section where we are patching the stats filter 1.6 YAML with the it's just straight out of the docs, really, that you guys have for the experimental feature. We're using the request operation name for the attribute, and we're promoting the feature actually as operations. I don't really see a reason to change that naming, even though I guess people could use a different attribute. And then down below, start to see some of the matching that we're doing. There's the travel quote and the list cities. So let me show you the one that here's like VIP and standard, right? So you've got the workload selector for hotels here. And then you're going to take a look, and we're matching on the request header. So we can say, hey, if you've got a user request header and the value is VIP, then you're going to bucketize it into the VIP aggregate or operation. And pretty much if it's not VIP, we're just throwing it into the standard bucket.
Okay, cool.
So that is how it's done.
Okay, that's great. And you just wrote these by hand, right? Because there is a work item that says use OpenAPI to automatically generate this. You didn't do it.
Yes, we did not do that. You're seeing exactly how it's done. It's just it's adding envoy filters manually.
Okay, great. No, this is awesome.
Good.
Thank you.
glad you liked it.
Jay, is this an app that we can experiment with the deployment of all of the setup of the hotel and everything? Is that available?
Yeah, I
on
mean
GitHub?
it's all public.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can throw a pointer in the into policies and telemetry Slack if you guys are interested.
Yeah, pretty nice. Yeah, we don't have quite this level of variety in our book info to actually do a lot of classification. We can do some, but not. This definitely has more.
Yeah, the one deficiency here is that it's only got one version of every workload, whereas Bookinfo's got like 3 versions of reviews or something like that. But we're so tired of looking at Bookinfo, we decided to create this one. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just, I want to show you one last thing. I know we're over, but this was, I hate to leave on a downer, but will be the downer. So going back to this view that I had initially with everything. So this is what we want to see for the travel app, but given the bug that's been in 1.6 since the beginning, and it's still there in 1.6.5 with regards to telemetry being generated incorrectly, giving you unknown and pass-through. So I've been filtering that out. Up here, you might have noticed this is our graph hide feature in Kiali, where you can get rid of stuff that you don't want to see. If I take away what I'm filtering out the bad telemetry, this is what the graph looks like with the bad telemetry.
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think you stopped sharing.
Did I stop? Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on one second. Oh, I see. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so now it's back. Do you see it? Did it come through? Okay, sorry. So this is what I was showing before. This is what we would like to see for the travel demo and what you should see. But up here, I'm actually filtering via the Kiali graph hide feature. The bad telemetry that has to do with unknown and pass-through cluster traffic being generated when you don't want it. And if I take away the filter, this is what you get. So out of the box, because of this bug, this is the telemetry that we see using 1.6. So if I don't hide it, it looks like a mess. So I'm a little concerned about that bug. I know Peter's been working on it, but the timeout approach seems to be maybe not working. I don't know.
Yeah, at least when I tried to install this travel app, after I increased it to an hour, I'm no longer able to see the junk edges.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of what's happening there. So, but I just want to show you.
Yeah, basically the thing is like the proto sniffing. Like the proxy doesn't know whether it's a HTTP or a TCP and make a forced judgment on the types of the traffic, and thus the exchange doesn't happen. The metadata exchange doesn't happen correctly, and causes this pass through and unknown edges.
Okay.
So even after we changed it to a very high value, we still
in 1.6.5 we changed it to 5 seconds.
Okay.
Which seems already pretty high for me, but yeah, I tried 1.6.5 with this travel app, and I'm still seeing several junk edge in my installation.
Even with 5 seconds.
Yeah, after I increased it to an hour.
Yeah.
Like at least it solves for me.
Yeah.
Solves the issue for me.
Yeah, I mean that's like I think that's what we need to do. Like really.
Yeah, so just increase it to infinity, but I don't know whether what Jay is saying is the same issue as what I thought about, like the proto sniffing. So I'm asking Jay to try it out in his installation just to make sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jay, if you have some time, please use that option and see whether that helps to solve this problem.
Okay.
And don't forget
I'll do that.
Yeah, don't forget to restart all the deployment to get rid
Right.
of the junk
Right.
telemetry. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I haven't really talked much. This is my first time showing up to this meeting, but my name is Brian Wolf. I work at Airbnb. And I just wanted to provide some feedback on the Mixer stuff. Like, we've never even attempted with Mixer because of the performance issues. So from our perspective, if it goes away, it just simplifies docs for us. So I know that's not a very broad perspective, but that's our perspective so far.
No, that's I mean, your perspective is welcome, and welcome, Brian, to the.
And nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't even have my video on. Sorry about that. Yeah. Nice to meet you guys.
Okay.
All right.
Well, now that we said hello, probably it's time to say goodbye. See you guys see everyone in 2 weeks. Sound good?
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone.
See you.